Could the San Francisco 49ers be making an addition to their defensive backfield? Let's talk about that here on the Niners Report. Chase Sr. here with you. On Tuesday, the Niners worked out 3 defensive backs. Trey Herndon, a veteran, Danny Johnson, who's played a lot at the NFL level, and the same can be said for Chandon Sullivan. Herndon and Sullivan are pretty well-known commodities in the National Football League. Let's begin with Herndon. He was a UDFA out of Vanderbilt in 2018, and right away he was able to impress the Jacksonville Jaguars organization, latched on, signed as a UDFA, landed a good contract for being an undrafted free agent, and he was with Jacksonville from 2018 to 2023, and then in 2024, over the summer, he was with the New York Giants throughout training camp, did not make the initial 53-man roster. You look at the experience here, 83 games played in his NFL career, and that includes 34 starts. And when he has started games, there have been some highs for him in his NFL career. After the Jaguars traded away Jalen Ramsey to the Los Angeles Rams, Herndon was promoted to starting corner, and he had 13 pass breakups in 16 games, including 14 starts. And although the play hasn't been fantastic the last 2 years, he can make plays on the football. Last 2 campaigns for him, 5 pass breakups and then 9 pass breakups. So not a bad player and a veteran who's seen a lot throughout his NFL career. As for Chandon Sullivan, he's also been a pretty good player. He's 28 years old. He was a UDFA in 2018 out of Georgia. So along the same age kind of grouping as Trey Herndon. He was with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2018 as a UDFA. He was with the Packers from 2019 through 2021. That's kind of where he made his money and made a name for himself. Minnesota Vikings in 2022, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2023. Like Herndon, again, another experienced player, 88 games, 33 starts, little bit of inside-outside corner, and over the last 5 years, he, like Herndon, some similarities between these two players, has been able to have good diagnosing skills, be able to read the eyes of the quarterback, come out of his breaks with this cornerback technique in a pretty good fashion. Pass breakups last 5 years, 6, 6, 4, 7, and 6. So he's been a solid player at the NFL level, both Herndon and Sullivan, whether they play again or not, as UDFAs to put together the careers that they have. It's really impressive. And then for Danny Johnson, another experienced corner, also a UDFA. He played his college ball at Ole Miss. He has 66 games under his belt and 8 starts. So not as many starting opportunities for him as compared to Chandon Sullivan and Trey Herndon. But the Niners here working out 3 veteran defensive backs on Tuesday. Obviously, this is protocol for a lot of teams across the league to work out players on a consistent basis, but San Francisco, who is already pretty deep in that secondary, could be making another addition. If that happens, of course, we'll relay that information for you here on the show. I next want to get to this, and this is something that I just want people to remember, keep in mind as we progress throughout the 2024 season. It's so early. The Niners have only played 2 football games. The offense has been up and down. There's been some good. There's been some bad. It's been a mixed bag for quarterback Brock Purdy. But last year, Klint Kubiak was the pass game coordinator for San Francisco. And prior to that, when Nathaniel Hackett was the head coach for the Denver Broncos, Kubiak was on his offensive staff. And after Nathaniel Hackett got fired, and it was an ugly firing for him, he didn't even make it the whole year, Kubiak called some plays at the end of the year. Of course, he is the son of Gary Kubiak, who was a longtime head coach for the Houston Texans as well as the Denver Broncos. His brother Clay is now working with the San Francisco 49ers, and he was pretty instrumental in just helping out this Niners pass game. And he is now the offensive coordinator with the New Orleans Saints. And through 2 games, New Orleans, one of the most shocking teams in the NFL, their offense has lit up the scoreboard against Carolina, against Dallas. Carolina, worst team in the NFL. The jury is out on the Dallas Cowboys. But either way, it's been really impressive what New Orleans has been able to do. Derek Carr looks decisive. He looks comfortable as he's looked in a couple of years. Alvin Kamara has 5 total touchdowns through 2 games. Rashid Shaheed is one of the more electrifying players in the NFL who people don't know about. A UDFA who played his college ball at Weber State. Chris Olave is a good player. And the Saints' offensive line has been tremendous. In the run game, they've barely given up any negative plays. And the Saints, through 2 games as well, have scored the 4th most points in NFL history. Tied for the 4th most points in NFL history through their first 2 games. And you look at these offensive numbers as Kubiak has brought a lot of the Shanahan elements to that New Orleans team. Pre-snap motion, a lot of creativity, forcing the defense to look one way, and then they run a play to the other side. Yards per game for New Orleans up to this point, they are 3rd in yards per game at 405.5. And to start the year, there's been a theme across the NFL. Quarterback play has not been good. In fact, it's been pretty ugly to start off the 2024 season. A lot of factors for that. Quarterback play not being as good as it's been. A lot of inexperienced quarterbacks out there not playing in the preseason. Defenses across the NFL are getting more aggressive. We saw that with Brian Flores. They're getting creative with their ways of mixing up fronts and mixing up coverages to confuse the opposing offenses. But these numbers are no joke. Yards per game, New Orleans is 3rd. They're 1st in points per game at 45.5. That is not sustainable, but it's impressive through 2 games because nobody was really expecting the Saints to be for real this year. They're number 3 in yards per game rushing at 185. And then Derek Carr, 11th in passing yards per game at 220.5. He hasn't needed to pass that much in the second half, though, because New Orleans has been dump trucking opponents. So do the Niners miss Kubiak? Let's continue to keep that in mind if this Niners offense continues to struggle. Kyle Shanahan, I know that Brian Flores has his number, still a great offensive coach. I think that what Brian Greasy's been able to do as a quarterback's coach has been very impressive, but again, something to kind of monitor here as the 2024 season progresses. Lastly, let's hit this. Should the Niners play some of their youngsters? A couple of people have reached out to me, and they're asking me, Chase, should San Francisco get Renardo Green on the field? Isaac Yiadom wasn't good against Minnesota. George Odom lined up against Justin Jefferson, and he was the player who Jefferson got past and gave up that 97-yard touchdown. Although Jair Brown said after the game that he didn't really help out George Odom. I think it's a defensive miscue for Nick Sorensen, and Richard Sherman said that too, and I said it during the game on Sunday. Like, why is George Odom lining up in the slot to cover Justin Jefferson? Say that out loud and ask yourself, does that make sense? No. But Renardo Green and Malik Mustapha give the Niners some youth. They give them some juice, some swagger. Both players in the college level had good ball skills. Renardo Green last year led the ACC in pass breakups at Florida State. Malik Mustapha, he has really good range at that safety spot, a lot of positional versatility. We saw him in a flash last week where he laid a pretty big hit, and he's not afraid to lay the thump down. Now, Renardo Green's first snap in the NFL actually came against Justin Jefferson in a dime package where that means that 6 DBs are on the field, and then the defense takes a linebacker off the field. And Jair Brown did bracket Justin Jefferson over the top, but Renardo Green had pretty good technique on that play, and he did some decent things in the preseason as well. And then Malik Mustapha, this is pretty notable here because George Odom is known as a career special teamer. He's known as a guy who doesn't really play many defensive snaps. He did have a good training camp, and Nick Sorensen had said, look, for George Odom, it's time for us to talk about him not just being a special teamer. Like, he can play defense. I think the results have been mixed. Like, he hasn't given this team what Deshaun Gibson gave the Niners. I think he's more of a special teamer. Malik Mustapha is a better safety. He's more explosive. He's a better athlete. And San Francisco as an organization, they're in this Super Bowl window, so they're playing a lot of veterans. That's a big reason why Devondre Campbell is also playing linebacker, because these vets have seen a lot. And the Niners know that while they might lack some athletic juice that these young players have, they can at least count on these guys to not blow coverages because they're very experienced players. But at some point, you got to get this youth movement going a little bit more and give these young players some more snaps if they're helping out your football team. And the early signs, preseason, regular season, you of course have to be safe because these players are inexperienced, but I think that they can play on the field, and I think that they can contribute on the field for the Niners this year in 2024. Another thing to have some foresight of and keep an eye out for as we move forward. If you enjoyed today's show, let's do a real one roll call. Give me a real one down in the comment section. As always, thank you so much for watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. Don't forget to hit that sub button for coverage every single day on the Niners.